Welcome back to the Midday Reset. My name is Antoinette, and thanks for taking a break with me today. Everyday life can get stressful as we move through responsibilities and commitments, and it's nice to take a break or two. This Midday Reset is meant to serve as a mini mental vacation for your brain as you deal with it all. Let's start by clearing our space with a nice deep breath in and out. Again, in and out. Once more, in and out. I want to talk to you today about apology and apologizing. It seems that our culture has become saturated with people apologizing lately, and that's mostly because what we do and say has been captured and placed in the vault that is the internet and can be searched and highlighted years after the fact. We also have a population more diverse than ever before, and with most messages, someone is bound to be offended by something. I am not implying that this is right, but it is an observation of our times, and these factors can feed the fire of depression, anxiety, or other mental illness if not checked. Knowing how to apologize is a necessary skill. We all make mistakes, and though our intention may not be to hurt anyone, it is best to acknowledge when we do, and do so properly, with properly being the operative word here. Given what I just told you about apologies happening a lot lately as a result of how our culture has evolved, it's natural that we have lots of examples of apologies that we can look to for getting cues about what works and what doesn't. I won't be naming anyone specifically here because the point of this is not to point fingers of anger or malice, but we can look at some of the faults found in apologies given before and take a different approach ourselves. First and foremost, apologizing means taking responsibility for your part in a conflict or disagreement. If you set out to apologize to someone, it means that you are trying to let them know that you acknowledge your wrongdoing. With that being said, your apology is not the time to point out all that you think that the other person did wrong. Do not make excuses for your words or actions by blaming them on someone else. Not in the apology. This isn't the place for that. You can have a separate conversation to address those issues if you really need to, but pointing fingers and placing blame has no purpose in an apology. Next, be sure not to conflate issues as you apologize. One issue at a time, one conflict at a time. If you aren't able to articulate what you have to be sorry about, maybe it's not time for you to try to apologize for it. You need to be clear on just what you are apologizing for before you can do so accurately and genuinely. You also should not be expected to take responsibility for faults that are not yours. In the same way that you must own your actions and words in a conflict in order to apologize for them, do not fall into the habit of owning other people's actions or words in an effort to try to diffuse the conflict faster. You do yourself a disservice when you do that. Now, this is a little different from something that you've likely heard before, which is being the better person, the bigger person. We are motivated from a very early age to be the bigger person and walk away from situations before they get worse. We're told to offer an apology as a means to end a conflict so that the larger mission of a situation can be satisfied, especially women and girls. We are often socialized to be the conflict reducers, regardless of who is at fault, which is pretty unfair. But this isn't a gender equality episode. Returning to being the bigger person, it's not always about coming out on top in the short term, but remaining on top for the long term. For example, you may have a close friend who you have a disagreement with, and even though you may know in your heart and your mind that this friend is wrong, continuing the conflict could lead to the end of the relationship. Perhaps it's not worth all that. In a case like that, you can decide to be the bigger person, extend the olive branch, and possibly agree to disagree with that person for the time being because there's something bigger to be concerned about. There is a lot of value in this. And if you do not believe so, consider a time when you acted stubborn, when you were unwavering or unreasonable. Everyone has been so, even me, so keep it 100 as you reflect. Someone somewhere extended you the same kind of grace I am referring to here when it comes to being the bigger person, and you are now better for it. Therefore, it's not too far beneath anyone to do so. It's a choice, just like everything else. Lastly, and this part refers more to the receiving end of apology, but making apologies can be difficult. It's hard to go to someone and tell them that you were wrong and that you are sorry for what your actions or words may have caused. But because we all know how hard it is, when someone comes to us and sincerely apologizes, we help turn the page on the issue by accepting the apology as it is and moving forward from the conflict with it. Your feelings are still valid, and someone's apology to you doesn't mean that you are no longer allowed to discuss your feelings pertaining to the event. But don't accept an apology only to remain bothered and upset. Conflicts often last a lot longer than they need to when people claim to be over them when indeed they are not. If you're still upset, just say so. If you need time to process in the wake of the apology, that's okay. It's okay to process phenomena slowly. It is an intentional way of reflecting on the events of our lives. And only you can really sort out for yourself how you're feeling, how best to proceed, and so on. But circling back, I really can't stand it when people make sincere apologies only to be blasted again for even doing so. This transaction really only leads to shutting down future apologies. By continuing to blast someone for their wrongdoing, even after they've apologized, is cruel. It's an assault to the psyche, and we shouldn't walk around hurting each other this way. Our world has enough in it that is painful and difficult. To sum up my final point, when someone sincerely apologizes to you, be a kind human and accept. If you are still hurt or reeling from the conflict, it's okay to state so. But acknowledge their willingness to move forward by apologizing. That's worth something, even if the relationship does not last. And if you are apologizing to someone sincerely, know that you are taking a step of owning your actions and words entirely, which is good. You don't deserve to be stepped on in those moments, even if the person you're apologizing to is still hurting. I used to think retribution was golden, but it's not. It just leads to more pain, and I'm committed to the idea of reducing the pain our world has through affirmation, intentionality, and defaulting to kindness over anger. Thank you so much for taking a break with me today. If you enjoyed this episode, I encourage you to share and subscribe. If you'd like to support the Midday Reset podcast, please become a patron on Patreon at patreon.com/MDR. That's patreon.com/MDR. Take care, my friends, and I will see you next time.